Thank you all for being here this morning. Look at all these wonderful faces. And I want to say thank you to all of you for all the extra input that went into service today. Marie, thank you so much for the beauty of the bowls. Really quite an amazing introduction for some of us, but not for others, to the beauty of the bowls and that kind of sacred vibration. Appreciate it. I also appreciate, and this is something that I think is definitely key to this loving community, I truly appreciated all of our platform assistants this morning. That was what we call cobbled together in the interest of serving the community. And not one of the four persons, everybody said, sure, no problem, which is a key, I think, to the special consciousness that resides here at Community on the Hill. Sure, no problem. Don't even think about it. And Roy, who came in beautifully to just close it up with all that presence that comes from practicing the presence, especially when you've been in a situation that gets us going like this. If you can say to yourself, peace, be still. So I think that was a gift of co-creation on everybody's part that's presently seated in the sanctuary. So I thank you and I bless you. This morning, we are going to be co-creating around a very special part of the Bible. And it is in its entirety called the Law of Nonresistance. And it's found in Matthew chapter 5, verses 29 to 49. Some of you are already saying, oh please, she's not going to read all that. I just might. Depends. What I will do, and why I'm bringing this forward today, especially, this is a chapter, it's actually chapter 8 in the Butterworth book that the class is working with and that I've spoken to you from before, Discover the Power Within. This is the old version. There is a newer version that's being sold on the back table there. And I chose specifically this chapter, the Law of Nonresistance, and how it plays out in our own lives. And I chose it on this particular Sunday. We are all aware that this is the 15th anniversary of 9/11, as we call it in our culture, and the honoring of the men and women who gave their lives in that time, and those that gave their lives after that day as a result of that day. Maybe firefighters or police that had subsequent illnesses and challenges that passed on. So what I thought I would like to do with our co-creation today is to look at this law of non-resistance and see how powerful it is in practicing what we believe to be a very strong, courageous act of our faith. And the law of non-resistance does not come easily. It is a collection of teachings that you already know. You've heard many of these before. Sometimes we've heard them as children. Sometimes we've learned them as adults. But Jesus gave them together in this one offering. And then Eric Butterworth did me the profound favor of taking it, these 20 verses, and dividing it into 5 parts. And it helped me separate out what I thought I already knew, and then helped me become humble in just exactly how little I know about anything. That knowing of you really don't know much about anything, that's an old Socrates phrase, I know what I don't know, and I do know what I do know, is very important. It's important because when we go to take a look at something like the law of non-resistance, it's important for us to just simply be willing to take in what's being said. And then accepting whether or not you accept what's being taken in. And that's very powerful for most of us. Most of us have trouble with that registration of, oh, we either like to say, yeah, that's true, I agree with that, without any thought whatsoever. Or, no, I disagree with that, that's at the core of my being, go away, without any thought whatsoever. We function sometimes on that high emotive state without actually taking into our hearts with discernment what is being said and how it matches up or doesn't match up with what you believe, who you are. And who you are is very different than the next person, except we all have that beautiful thread of divinity moving in and through us. That is what binds us to each other and to God. So the law of resistance, according to our friend Eric, and I'll keep referring to the book here a good bit, he says, without a doubt, if Jesus' teachings of non-resistance were universally understood and practiced, we would see an end to all war, to all conflict between nations, between factions, classes, and races. And we would see the one giant step needed toward eliminating the root cause of all physical illness. This concept, oh, by the way, now that he's made this declaration, is found in Matthew chapter 5, 29 through 49, the law of non-resistance. So the first part of this is as follows. And I'm not going to read the whole section. I'm going to read enough so that you can remember it and think, oh yeah, I've heard that before. And if thy right eye causeth thee to stumble, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not the whole body be cast to hell. And if the right hand causes thee to stumble, cut it off, and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not the whole body go to hell. So he said the same thing twice, first about the right eye and then about the right hand. And when I speak to you about this in these particular terms, what he's really saying, and I call this the street value for you and me, is if you have anything, whether it be your right eye or your right hand, that separates you from the God of your being, get rid of it. It can be a bad habit, it can be faulty thinking, it can be bad behavior, it can be harsh words spoken to another or to yourself. Cut it out. Now, when I was a kid, my dad used to use that phrase with me a lot. Cut it out, Sandy. Meaning, stop it. You know, when you get a little too smart or a little too frisky, look, cut it out. Jesus literally was saying, cut it out. We metaphysically, which is what Butterworth is all about and what we do in unity as we interpret the Bible, are saying, cut out the risky behavior and the risky business and the way that is keeping you from the God of your heart. It is our divinity, it is our oneness that we need to practice each and every day. And when we see our poor bad behavior or words that we wish we hadn't said, simply say to yourself, cut it out, stop. So it's that kind of metaphysical interpretation that's very important here for part one, and that is, anything between us and our spiritual unity with God must go. So I challenge you on this first part. Take a look. What is it you have in your life that must go? You know it must go, but up until today, you have not allowed for it to go. You have not blessed it and said, be on your way. I no longer need you. You no longer serve me. And you do a disservice to me because you separate me from the God of my being. If you can get that conceptually, you then have grasped that first part of this very important law of non-resistance. You see, anything that stands between you and the God of your being is resistance. It's right there. It is resistance. And this is the law of non-resistant. You want to be non-resistant? Get rid of what does not serve you. That's part one. Part two. It was also said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that everyone that putteth away his wife, saying for the cause of fornication, maketh her an adulteress, and whosoever shall marry her when she is put away, committeth adultery. And some of you are sitting there, I don't like this part of the Bible. I don't remember this. This doesn't sound friendly to me. So would you put that away, Reverend Sandy? And oh, by the way, I don't remember anybody telling me Jesus talked about adultery or divorce. Well, guess what? It's in this particular law of non-resistance. And how are we going to take it metaphysically? Take it in your relationships that you have, whether it be with your husband or your wife. We all have relationships with each other, friends, colleagues. Are you in a state of relationship as in a marriage with your friends and colleagues, or your spouse, or your son, or your daughter? Or are you in a state of divorce? Are you pulling away from the very people that we say we love and we respect? And what this part of non-resistance in this is, the marriage is the term for relationship. The divorce is the term where we have no divinity in the relationship. It is a dissolving. It is resistant. How many of us have had friends that we've had at one point during our life, and for whatever reason, they no longer are in our life? But we wonder, where are they? How are you? How are you doing? Do you ever think about me? That's always a good one, because you know it's all about me, right? We all know that. What you're doing there when you get into that kind of faulty thinking is you're in a divorce situation. You're in a resistance situation. You are not in a relationship. You are not in marriage. And you say, well, I don't want to be married to this person. I'm talking about divorce and marriage to God. When we are in a state of love and compassion and wholeness, we are married. We are with God. And when we, in our relationships, very often, we all do it, we've all done it from time to time, start in a resistant kind of mode. Pick, pick, pick. Gossip, gossip, gossip. Then you're setting yourself up for the great divorce, the great resistance. And you have once again separated from the God of your being. So I encourage you on this particular part, go ahead and read this section, because the other point in this section is, and if you can get past the trigger words of marriage and divorce, is, are you engaged in life or are you escaping life? And you may say, well, that's a long way from marriage and divorce. But it really isn't. When you are married to life, you're engaged in life. You're happy, you're in the flow. And when you're in a divorce or resistance situation, you are headed to the back 40 and you are escaping as fast as your little feet can take you. And that's the metaphysical kind of street value of this particular section, if you will, of the law of non-resistance. Part 3. Jesus talks about, and this is one I found very interesting.